In lesson 5-3, we will be adding and subtracting mixed numbers. So first we're going to talk about what is a mixed number. Well, we have normal fractions are just like 3/7 or 2/3. And then you have improper fractions, which the numerator is larger than the denominator. So like 7/3 or 9 seconds, 9 halves, something like that. Well, a mixed number is when you have a mixture of both whole numbers and a fraction. So this would say we have three whole. So if I were going to draw this as a picture, I would have three whole circles or whole pies or whole cookies or pizzas or what have you. And then I have one more that is broken into 5 equal parts. So if I were to split this one into 5 parts, it would look like something like this. And it says I have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those, and all of these could be filled in here. So I have 1, 2, 3. So it's 1, it's another 1, it's another 1, and this is 4 out of 5. So altogether that'd be 3 4/5. So the whole number standing for how many whole pizzas or cookies that we have, and then the fraction telling us what part of the next one. So we only need this one extra part in order to get to the next whole. So again, this is our numerator. This would be our denominator. And then we have the whole number right here. So whole number, numerator, denominator. We would say 3 4/5, because if we wrote that as a decimal, there would be a decimal right there, 3 8/10. Because if we made that to 10, we would multiply the 4 by 2 to get 8. So we'd say 3 8/10. So when we're adding and subtracting mixed numbers, you first need to make sure, do I have an LCD? Do I have a least common denominator? If we do, then we can go to the next question. If we don't, you have to take care of that first. So then number 2, if you are subtracting, so that means if we're actually adding, you can just go ahead and go. You can jump down to step 3. Step 2 is only for if you're subtracting. If you're subtracting, is the numerator on the left bigger than the numerator on the right? If not, we're going to rename the mixed number, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Once we have the numerator on the left bigger than the numerator on the right, again, and that's if you're subtracting like 3/4 minus 1/4. So here, the numerator on the left is bigger than the numerator on the right. If we did it, written it vertically, 3/4 minus 1/4, we would say the numerator on top bigger than the numerator on bottom. So it's all a matter of how you're writing it. Most of the problems that we'll see today, it will be written left and right. So that's why in our notes, I wrote numerator on the left bigger than the numerator on the right. So once we get that to happen, you can go. So for this example, go meaning I can do 3 minus 1 all over 4, which is 2 over 4, which then that is 1/2. Because at the very end, you always need to simplify your answer. And you would get that same thing either way. 3 minus 1 is 2. The denominator doesn't change, and then we would have 1/2. Okay, so it just looks a little bit different, writing it top and bottom. The denominator, everything still stays the same. The numerators get subtracted. So for example 1 says find 3 1/12 plus 14 7/12, and then write it in simplest form. So first of all, do I have an LCD? Yes, I do. The next question is if you are subtracting. So I can actually jump down to step 3, which here it says I can evaluate. So I'm going to rewrite this problem, 3 1/12 plus 14 7/12. Okay, well, I can actually go ahead and add my whole numbers. So 3 plus 14 is 17. And then I'm going to rewrite 1 plus 7 over 12. And then I can rewrite that as 17 8/12. And now I need to simplify. The last step I always need to do whenever I'm working with fractions is simplify. So I can divide both of these by 4. Again, I need to show this work that is expected of you. And so I get 17 2/3 is my answer. And I can't simplify that anymore. So this one wasn't too bad. We already had an LCD. You add your whole numbers together, and then you take care of your numerators to make 8, and then we would simplify our answer. Now, I do expect all of this work to be shown in your notes, along with this is how I want to see it in your homework as well. All right, so example number 2. First things first, do I have an LCD? No, I do not, so I need to take care of that. Well, what is a common denominator between 4 and 3? I know if I set this up as an L method problem, there's nothing that I can factor out of 4 and 3. So I'm just going to go ahead and multiply those two numbers together to get 12. So that's going to be my least common multiple or least common denominator. So I'm going to rewrite this as 9 with a 12 on bottom minus 5 with a 12 on bottom. Okay, and so how did I get 4 to 12? I multiplied by 3. So I got to do whatever I did to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So it's going to be 9/12. And 4 times 3, 3 times 4. So I got to multiply the top times 4. Okay. So if you were doing this problem out of the book, I would expect you to write the original problem. We already have it written here in our notes, so you can start with that. You don't have to rewrite it for this problem. That's okay. But if you were doing your homework, I would expect to see the original problem written in your homework so I can see this step that you're showing me right here with this multiplication. Okay, now, is the numerator on the left bigger than the numerator on the right? Because we are subtracting, so I have to ask that question. 9 is bigger than 4, so I can go ahead and I can evaluate. So 9 minus 5, go ahead and do your whole numbers. 9 minus 5 is 4, and then we're going to do 9 minus 4 all over 12. Okay, and then we can rewrite that as 4 and 5/12. And I can't simplify that at all, so that's my whole answer. So again, you can work with the whole numbers as long as your numerator on the left is bigger than the numerator on the right. We're going to get to a problem where we have to rename, and then you can't just take care of your whole numbers first. So take it one step at a time. Follow the steps here that I'm giving you. Okay, if it's addition, you can go from 1 to 3. If it's subtraction, though, you have to check step 2. All right, example 3. Do I have a common denominator? Yes, I do. And it is subtraction, so is the numerator on the left bigger than the numerator on the right? Well, for this problem, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the problem just so we can get in a habit of doing that for our homework and everything else. So is the numerator on the left bigger than the numerator on the right? No, it's not. So we need to rename our mixed number. So what we have to do is we have to take one of these whole and put it back into our fraction. So I'm going to change this to a 7. And if you remember back to our circle diagram, to make another fraction, I have to add 5 more numerators to the top here because 5 makes a whole. So I'm going to plus 5 on top. So I'm going to rewrite that 7 6/5 minus 3 3/5. So now, is the numerator on the left bigger than the numerator on the right? Notice I really did not change this mixed number at all. 8 1/5 is the same as 7 6/5 because I can make another whole there. I can make that 8, and I would have 1/5 extra. It's just another way to write it, so that way we can work out this problem. So now the numerator on the left is bigger than the numerator on the right, so we can go ahead and go to step 3, which says go, or evaluate the problem. So 7 minus 3 is 4, and then we're going to do 6 minus 3 all over 5, and this is how I expect to see your work on your notes and your homework. So 4, and then we're going to have 3/5, and we can't simplify that any further, and so we're done right there. For example number 4, do I have a common denominator? Well, we have a little bit of a problem because this is a whole number. So, and I do see that I'm subtracting, so the next question is the numerator on the left bigger than the numerator on the right? Well, I need to have a numerator here to be able to work this problem out. So, Copy the original problem, 11 minus 8 and 2/3. Now we need to change this 11 to a 10. And we need to write a fraction, and why not choose a fraction that already has a common denominator? So we'll say 10 and 3/3. We know that 3/3 is equal to 1, so 1 plus 10 is 11. I'm not really changing the problem, I'm just renaming it a different way. So I'll rewrite that 10 and 3/3 minus 8 and 2/3. Now my numerator on the left is bigger than the numerator on the right, so I can subtract 10 minus 8 is 2, and then I'll rewrite this as 3 minus 2 all over 3, which is 2 and 1/3. I can't simplify that any further, so I'm done right there. Okay, so whenever you do have a whole number and you're subtracting, you're going to want to get that renamed into a different mixed number, so that way we can subtract that extra fraction there. All right, for example number 5, a quiche recipe calls for 2 3/4 cups of grated cheese. A recipe for quesadillas requires 1 1/3 cups of grated cheese. What is the total amount of grated cheese needed for both recipes? Okay, when they talk about a total amount, we're going to add those two, so 2 3/4 plus 1 1/3. Do I have a common denominator? No. Again, we had a problem like this earlier. If we put it in the L method, it's just going to be 4 times 3, which is 12. So rewrite the whole problem. 2 with a 12 in the denominator plus 1 with a 12 in the denominator. How do you get from 4 to 12? You multiply by 3, so we'll do that to the top. So we get 9. How do you get from 3 to 12? You multiply by 4 in the denominator, so we'll do that to the numerator. 4 times 1 is 4. And then now we have a common denominator, and we're just adding, so you can go ahead and go to step 3, which is evaluate. So we'll get 3 and 9 plus 4 over 12. I'll let you go ahead and add the whole numbers, but I do want to see the numerators written like this first, so that way we get in that habit. And then we're going to go 3 and 13/12. Now, by looking at this, 13/12, that actually makes another whole. So we want to regroup our mixed numbers so that we're writing it correctly for our answer. So since I can make another whole, okay, I'm going to take 12 away. So now I'm going to subtract 12 from the top because 12 makes a whole. So I'm going to get 4 total, and I would have 1/12 left. And now I need to look for my units, and that's cups of grated cheese. So we'll just say 4 1/12 cups of cheese, and that will be fine. So sometimes we'll need improper fractions here to work out a problem, but whenever we're answering it, we want to write it as a proper mixed number. Okay, that's our last example for today. If you want to look at some more examples, be sure to check out the online tutors. If you have any other questions with homework, you can check the step-by-step homework helper.